How you guys doing? Today I'm going to show you how to make a mold for your swim bait or hard plastic baits using Alumilite high strength 2. And as you can tell, I have the mold box already set up. And I'll show you how I did it. What I did is I laid a flat piece of clay that you get in the kit. You can buy the hard plastic kit, or you can find your own sculpture clay. This is what it looks like. It's like a white clay. It's the most easiest to use. What I did is I laid a flat piece of it, and then I don't know if you can tell, but I got 2 parts of my swim bait right there. Have them disconnected just to make it easier on me in the pouring. And what I did was I took my knife and laid the bait on the clay, carved around it, pulled a piece out, and then dug in and made a hole in the clay for both pieces to fit in. Pushed them both in so that way they're halfway in, and then with my fingers around the edge of the bait, I pushed the clay against it. And even with the cavities right over here with the joints, you have to, I got like a piece of wood. This is a skewer, and I use that to push it in the small crevices like the mouth opening and whatnot. And then other things I did is, you don't want to forget, is if you take like a pen or just whatever, you want to push holes in the clay away from your bait, of course. And what these will do is this will help guide when you finish your mold. It will help guide. It'll be like a guide, so that way your mold doesn't if you don't get it even, the mold won't line up even. Your bait will be uneven. And I did that in the first mold of this bait, and around the mouth area it would sag a little bit, and then the mouth would, on one side would be uneven with the other side. So if you want a consistent even bait, make sure you push the guide holes in. It just helps line up the bait, line up the 2 molds together perfectly, and it's an easy step. And then on the box, on the outside box, as you can tell, I got this corrugated plastic. I used cardboard before, but the Alumilite, it doesn't always bleed through. But if you don't get a good thick cardboard or good resistant cardboard, this stuff will actually kind of like bleed through it. Plus it sticks to it really well. So this stuff's better. Plus it's, I can reuse this stuff. So, and what I did is I used the hot glue gun, and I glued alongside the edges. So what I did is I pushed this corrugated plastic material down in the clay, and that way the bottom base is sealed along here. And then I pushed the clay on the outside right here up against it, so I didn't have to. I saved on hot glue, which is inexpensive, but the only bad thing about hot glue is you have to really put a lot on just to make sure it's sealed. So as long as I have the edges sealed pretty good, I don't have to worry about the base. So these are only have 4 sides of failure, and the clay does a pretty good job. And I'll do a follow-up video once I get this thing molded. That's pretty much what I've done so far. Alright guys, so you can see that I've started the mold. I've already molded the piece, so I'm waiting for it to cure now. I have the Alumilite high strength 2 in there, and it should be done, within the next 24 hours. And I had the mold set up one way when I first shot this video, and I actually realized I didn't want it that way, so I had to redo the whole molding. The first video explains how to get a good mold and everything, and I'll show you why I changed up my method. Here's how I had it in there before. This is a bait that I didn't mix right, so it was just a prototype. I just cut it which way, and that's what I used. I had it set up like this, and normally if you're doing a regular straight through mixture, this is a good way to do it. What you could do is just do a pour hole right up here, have it feed into here, and if you're mixing one, if you're not adding the micro balloons or the tungsten, this is a good way to do it. The reason why I didn't do it this way is because what I do is I pour half regular, and what I'm going to start doing is pouring half weighted. So the bottom portion of this bait I'm going to have weighted. Top portion of this bait I have micro balloons in it, and the reason being is let's say this is a whole bait. If you don't have this thing correctly, especially a bait that's this wide and narrow, if you don't have it the weight and the formula correct, whenever you throw this bait out, if you have it to where there's no buoyancy on the top, this thing will just like this go flat just like that to the bottom of the water. So that's no good, and it won't swim right. You can't swim a bait sideways unless you're making a flounder bait, so it won't work out that way. So what I do is I pour half regular and then the other half micro balloons, and what that does is it pulls that top portion up because it's buoyant, and this bait will either sit, I can have it to where it sits on the top of the surface and barely cracks the surface, nice wake bait, or what I'm also experimenting with is change up the formula a little bit towards slow sinking, suspended, or fast sinking. You can add tungsten. That's what I just got in mail. They sell powder, or what you could do is drill at the bottom and put lead in there. That's an extra process. So I'm gonna try mixing it in with the formula with the Alumilite white casting material and do it all in one. So that's the reason why I did not do it like this, because it's too much a pain in the butt to have a feed hole right here and a feed hole right here. And if I would have done a feed hole, I would have had to do it like right over here, and it wouldn't have leveled out. I mean, it would have leveled out kind of even, but to get that perfect, I did it like this to get that perfect symmetrical line to where the bait isn't, the bait won't be like that because I mixed up the formula, or I didn't get even on the tail. So it's like the bait floats like this. So having it side by side like this and just doing a continuous straight through line is the best way. And hopefully I didn't crooked it at all, because it kind of makes somewhat of a pain in the butt. But that's why I did that. It's my explanation. I mean, it might be the wrong way, but I'm gonna try it out, and hopefully this way works. And this way would have been good, but because I like to do micro balloons on the top portion of this bait to, just be a little different, or just the method I do it. That's why I did it. And also today I got my Alumilite Flex 40 in, and I'm making urethane rubber fins for this bait, and I'll show you how I did those in the next video. Alright guys, so I'm going to show you how I did the fins. What I started out with was a piece of clay that I flattened, cut out the portion of the fin that I wanted, how I wanted it, and turned it into this. What I did was I flattened this portion out right here. I wanted to keep this portion back here wide so that we could fit it in the bait, and because I didn't want it to swivel, I wanted it to be in place. That's why I kept it wide. I used a credit card, like once I got this to where it was like an incline, like more nailed towards the back and up here not so narrow. I used a credit card to do these cuts in it, and these kind of made it look more like a fin. And then to also add to it, see these little slits, I took a knife and actually cut those to mimic a tail. And I have this. This is a little bit too big for my bluegill bait, so I actually made up this one right here. And then actually testing it, this one I actually didn't like the size, but because I already made the mold for this, I'm just going to use this, and then whenever I cast them, I'll just cut off the material that I don't like when I'm testing out. But even this size was too big. It hurts the action on the bait. This size I'm going to keep for later on when I want to start making glide trouts and whatnot, so I'm going to keep that for later on. And that's how I made that. Instead of using the high strength 2 casting material, because these tails are going to get torn up more than the body, and the detail on these tails I'm not too worried about, because I didn't spend crazy amount of time on these. I probably spent 30 minutes each. I used a mold putty for them and squeezed it together, and then made an opening on the top right here, and then cut down the side. And that way I clamped the side, and I'll show you how I did it, and pour it in. When it's done pouring, it's done drying and whatnot, I take the clamp off the side, peel it open, pull the thing out the side, and I'll show you how I did that. Alright guys, so I have the urethane rubber in the mold right now, and this is the mold I did. Kind of did a sandwich type mold, and what I did was I stuck the clay fin after I baked it and made it hard. I stuck it in there on one side, and then I folded the clay over top of it and pressed down on each side. And this is actually a fin that I made from that same exact mold right there. This is the fin that I made from the clay, from that mold that I casted with the hard plastic. The reason why I did this is to test this fin out, make sure I like it before I move on to urethanes, because urethane, it's about the same price, a little more expensive, but this stuff, instead of having a demold time of 24 hours almost, this stuff right here has a demold time of 10 minutes, so you can understand why I would cast this instead of waiting 24 hours to test it. So and at the time I didn't have the urethane rubber, so this was a good idea. And then on this, on the side right here where that clamp, I actually cut through the side, and when this dries I can peel open that side, grab it by the top, kind of shake it, and then pull it out the side, and that way I have a nice mold. I didn't have to worry about, I could have made a one piece mold with the high strength mold putty, like this stuff right here. The only thing is it takes a while. It takes 24 hours to let it set. Where the mold putty, I did it in 10 minutes. So at the time, the fin, I wanted to get done because it's not as detailed as I would want it to be at the fin. I was okay with. Plus the mold putty, it captures all the detail almost all the detail that this stuff captures. So I wasn't too worried about that. And another point that I want to point out, and I explained in my other video why it's important to have your guide holds on your mold. So this is my first mold right here. That's the first one I made, and after testing it, and I got a good cut on it, I'm going to make a second mold, which is not the ideal situation. You normally want to refine your bait before you have to make two molds, so I kind of messed up there. It was a beginner mistake. This is my mold right here. You can tell I have the top pour hole right here. No guide holes, and I'll show you the problem you run into when you don't have no guide holes. You don't know when this thing's lined up. It's pretty dang hard to tell you. I mean, you can kind of guesstimate to how it pulls together. I kind of marked it, but even with that, if you get this thing upwards a little bit, that bait, one side's going to be higher than the other side. So when you're casting in the clay, make sure you put your guide holds in there, or else you run into this problem. This is a good mold. It's just to get it even and keep the bait consistent. It's really hard to do it, and I've made about 6 baits with this, and they all have that imperfection on them. So put the guide holes in your bait, save you a hassle and just a pain in the butt that this is. That's partially why I'm making a second base, because that doesn't have guide holes. I can't keep the consistency as I want to. So put guide holes in your clay. I forgot about putting it in there. I put it in my first mold when I first made a mold. I got in a hurry with this one and didn't do it right. And keep following me. I'll show the progress on my bait and some of the swim videos and whatnot whenever I get it completed. And I'll try to explain more, because I'm probably moving to soft plastics too with this stuff, and start experimenting with Alumilite soft plastic. Right now I want to stick to hard baits. I'm making the bluegill bait right now. Eventually I want to move into maybe a glide trout. So stick around and I'll show you how I do. I'll try to get more in depth in the carving of the material. Not too good on it, so hopefully by the next bait I have it more have my skills more better, so that way I can more redefined, I guess you can say, so that way I can show you guys better how to carve, and I'll show you through the whole process of wood to saw to hard plastic to mold to finished product. So stay tuned, guys. Got more to come with especially Alumilite because I love the products.